Warren.
We've been grinding away for a few years now in mobile marketing with all of this noise around SKAN, iOS measurement. It's taken a few years, but I feel like we finally are at a spot where like that stuff is sorted. We have SKAN figured out as an industry, and it's like, finally, man, we can just move on and do our jobs. I am looking forward to getting caught up on WWDC. Anything you think I'll care about that got announced?
Yeah, there's this new thing called Apple Intelligence, which they finally announced. Apple taking their crack at AI. That's exciting.
Okay.
There's another thing that you might be interested in. Something called AdAttributionKit, which, wait for it,
What's
replaces SK Ad Network.
But we just figured that out.
Oh, did you? Oh, that's nice. You think Apple gives a fuck?
Wait. But we just spent like 4 years figuring out SK Ad Network. There's another one?
There's another one, and not only is there another one, it's eventually going to deprecate the one that we have today.
Oh, no.
There's two big takeaways. One is they're opening this up for what they call marketplaces, which are non-Apple app stores. So they have a measurement framework that can be used on other app stores. And then two, they're adding re-engagement tools. So if you zone out for the rest of it, that's the important things that are in AdAttributionKit.
All right, let's get into the show. As always, the pod is brought to you by our team here at Uptick. Here at Uptick, we do all things to help games grow. We do paid UA, we do Web3 native growth tactics, we develop creative, we build really cool marketing automation software. If you are scaling a game and want help to do that a bit better or to take some of that work off your plate, you can reach out to our team at upptic.com. That's upptic.com.
Okay, next up, it's very, very critical for the games ecosystem overall, specifically the mobile games ecosystem. So Apple has announced a new AdAttributionKit for iOS and iPad OS, which is built on top of the SKAN fundamentals is how they framed it, but it's a new system which is expected to eventually replace SKAN, and SKAN will be deprecated. Currently, the system is interoperable, and the API was released in 17.4, so it actually is already in the current operating system, but they've made changes that will roll out in the 18 operating system, which actually make it differentiated from SKAN. It's really interesting to see what's changing. So this is where we're going to get a little technical, and there's a lot of jargon here. And so what we're going to do is for these specifically, we're going to link to several of the really key articles that we use to compile this information. If you're curious about learning more, definitely dig into those articles. So first and foremost, Warren, you ready? You ready for this? Are you so excited about SKAN?
I am not ready. Like literally the industry is still hasn't figured out how to do basic. Literally today, I talked to two different teams that are like, yeah, we're running UA on Android. We're not running it on iOS because we haven't figured out how to work around SKAN. And it's been years. And now we're replacing and updating it with a whole new system, and the infrastructure hasn't even caught up. On the plus side, though, anyone who's planning content for like a mobile industry event or webinar just has now their content for the next 4 years planned, because the last 4 years have been primarily how to beat SKAN conferences. So now there's another topic. So thank goodness for that.
Great. I'm sure you're excited. One thing I will note is that the functionality of AAK, as I guess we'll call it for now, AdAttributionKit, is very, very similar to SKAN 4.0. So like basically most of the bones that were in SKAN that you've learned to know and love, most of that's not going away. What's important is they're adding a couple new pieces of functionality. And just to skip ahead, it's mostly around re-engagement, which is really interesting. And so we will get to that later. I'm going to much of the top line system requirements and schemas and explain a little bit about that. So there are basically two variations of AdAttributionKit. One is an app attribution kit, which is what we've described so far. It's for Apple App Store, as well as alternative app marketplaces, which are the new framework for alternative app stores, as well as a web attribution kit. So there are 4 schemas that AAK, God, I hate saying it, AAK, schema of the past.
Lysander, can we just agree to call it AAK?
You have to roll in the back of your throat, though. AAK. So the new AAK provides 4 different schemas for how advertisers can categorize ad placements and measure their conversions. Something called a custom click event. This, you can think about this as click-through attribution, and it works for either the App Store or alternative marketplaces, so alternate app stores. There's a view-through ad. Again, also works for App Store or alternative app stores, and requires a 2-second minimum watch time to be tracked. And then there are what they call recommended ads. And these are feature functionality that works on the Apple App Store only. And they're more powerful than the custom flows. So there's something called SK overlay ads, and it's used to promote apps in the App Store, the Apple App Store. And it's a banner ad, which has a view through and click through component, and also changes the flow. So instead of having to go to the App Store directly, it is a partial takeover, and you can install straight from the ad. something like this exists in SKAN 4, but because SKAN 4 hasn't been widely adopted, I have personally not seen a ton of this. I think I've noticed it a couple times in a while, but I haven't seen a ton of it. And there's a new thing called, God, this is a long name, SK Store Product View Controller Ads, which again is an ad that is an ad format that is targeted at non-app media, so stuff like store pages. So that's a lot that I just threw at you. Warren, any questions, thoughts? Is it very clear? Do you understand?
No one understands it. No one understands. No one understood SKAN. No one's going to understand this. No one's going to use it. One of the materials that we're going to link is a good deep dive on this by Eric Seufert via Mobile Dev Memo. And one of the things that Eric calls out, as far as like, okay, what's going to actually happen at the end of the day with SKAN, what actually happened? It said in the documentation that it's prohibited to do fingerprinting. Everyone just ignored that and did fingerprinting, other than Apple and Google, basically the megacorps where they're going to face serious legal repercussions. Everyone's still just doing fingerprinting using IPs. And they have the same kind of general wording that Eric calls out that is in the documentation for this, but they've never enforced this in the past. So the practical implication of this is there's going to be a few teams like Uptick that happen to have engineers on their marketing team where we can build out things to work around this and leverage this stuff. But for the average marketing team that has no engineers, they're just going to probably default to which ad networks still use fingerprinting, because I can do UA on those without having to like leverage engineering and data scientists to build a model out. So yeah, I think it's going to be the rich get richer kind of scenario. There's more meat on the bone for those of us that are deep in the weeds of SKAN, but for like 95% of marketers, they're still going to just be using fingerprinting and working with one hand tied behind their back. There's nothing about this that makes it more approachable or easier to use for the average marketer, in my read. What do you think, Xander?
Yeah, I think that's totally right. I mean, it solidifies Uptick as keeping us employed because we have jobs. This is going to be hard for folks. I do want to show this graph. This is a singular dashboard on SKAN adoption, which I think is just exactly articulates what you described. So this is SKAN adoption of version 4 versus the previous versions. And this goes back to just the beginning of this year when I guess 4 rolled out. In April, it was 5% of people had to upgrade to SKAN 4, and then it jumped a little bit. And then what we basically see is in this year, SKAN 4 adoption basically levels out at like 30%. So the majority of networks have just not upgraded from 3 to 4. And now it's like, okay, here's a new framework. Now, this is interesting to see, right? What the question is there enough differentiation between 3 and now what's going to be an AAK to force people to upgrade? One of the key things that we'll talk about now is that this allows for re-engagement. There's a re-engagement mechanism. And if the ad networks believe that they can get incrementally better at serving traffic by understanding when a user has re-engaged, then maybe it makes sense for them to actually take the time and effort to upgrade. Warren, I feel like you're smiling, but I don't think it's about what I'm talking about.
Xander, you always make me smile.
Okay, so there's a new feature called conversion types. Basically what this means is in the post back, you would say, is this a value a download, a re-download, or a re-engagement? This is now a solution for building measurement-free targeting for re-engagement. But importantly, there's no mechanism like IDFA to allows you to target the users who you're trying to re-engage. So if you manage to target a user who you've already engaged with, great. Now you have the capacity to sort of build that into your marketing models, but you still can't actually actively go out and target users who have not opted into the IDFA tracking. So step in the right direction, but not super, super meaningful, I think, because as we've talked about in previous podcasts, about 1 in every 4 or 5 users actually opts into IDFA tracking. And so this is still a small subset of your audience, although potentially the most highly engaged subset of your audience. Lastly, from this component, there's a new deep linking mechanism, which allows you to basically re-engage users and put them in a specific place in your app. And it allows you to update the postbacks. This is kind of confusing. I'm not going to go super deep into that, but basically we have tools for re-engagement which we didn't have before. There are new developers tools to help with debugging. My understanding is it's been a pain in the ass to debug this in the past. I imagine it'll still be the pain in the ass, but it'll be slightly less pain in the ass to debug because you can basically disable the timers delays as you do debugging. So you don't need to wait 35 days to debug a multi-part SKAN conversion value. Anyway, that's the highlights. Warren, you ready to go? Ready to hit up a mic and just roll this all out into our new platform?
Mike is Uptick's CTO and head of product. So shout out Mike, by the way. He's a valuable asset to us here at Uptick. And always
don't steal him.
There's going to be a lot of moving pieces here. Both of the big announcements that we focus on, I think, are going to have a lot of implications for app developers and app marketers. We made a lot of jokes today, but yeah, both Apple's foray into first-party and partner AI, and then this new ads infrastructure, which is going to run in parallel to existing SKAN network. I don't know if we really clarified that. So we're going to have this weird overlap period where both systems are in place concurrently, as we understand it. So this is going to be a period of massive change and thrash within mobile, as though we haven't had enough of those in the last decade. But I don't know. I'm here for it, man. Whenever there's this thrash and craziness, that's also when there's time to like get an edge in your game. So I look forward to anytime the rules change. And I think the rules are changing in a few ways here.
Yeah, this is going to be really slow to adopt is my guess. We'll see. Anyway, that's it. There's a lot more going on at WWDC. If you're curious, go watch the 2-hour video. That's it. More, take us out.
Thanks, everyone, for joining the show today. As always, it's brought to you by a team here at Uptick. As you may know, here at Uptick, we do all stuff to help games grow. If you're scaling a great game, we'd love to see how we can help you achieve that goal profitably and sustainably. Reach us on our website. It's uptick.com. That's UPPTIC.com.
Talk soon.